Okay, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. We are here today to talk about the census. If you attended our last webinar on COVID-19, then you kind of have a feel for how this goes. We got a lot of good feedback on that webinar, so we decided to try it again to bring you as much information as we can during these times while we're sheltered in place. So we haven't been having our Ward A quarterly meetings. So now we are doing things via technology. So thank you all for tuning in today. I am going to introduce you to our panelists for today. So from Hudson County, we have Francesca Geritana. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
And we have from the city of Jersey City, Deja Anderson. So I'm going to ask you ladies if you would please give us just some brief information about your role in the census at the county and city level. So we'll start with Francesca.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Councilwoman, for inviting me to be on this panel. So my role at the county is actually the head of Hudson County Planning, and we had taken on the census outreach on the county level, and the state had supplied some funding trickle down to the counties to help assist with this. So we had brought some people on and have been working closely with the city to assist with the census outreach.
Okay. And hi, everyone. Again, my name is Deja, and Councilwoman, thank you for having me on this platform. Any chance that I can get this census message out to the residents of Jersey City is an amazing opportunity. So thank you so much. But my overall role here in the city of Jersey City is I'm representing the office of Mayor Stephen M. Fulop, and he is highly concerned about the census and this push. So I'm trying to get this information out to the community and increase our census response rates.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. We have a few questions. We may get a few questions on Facebook, and my aide, Kimberly Gokache, is going to be monitoring that. So if we get a few questions there that we're not asking, we might add a few in there. If not, if you have a question that has to be answered, we will review the feed at the end and make sure we get you an answer to those questions. Okay, so what exactly is the U.S. Census and how does this whole thing work?
Okay, who wants to take that one? Me or you, Francesca?
You got this first one, Deja.
Okay, all right. So what is the census? So in a nutshell, the census is mandated in the Constitution that every 10 years we count the entire population of the United States. And it's really important to be specific on that because we're counting everyone that resides at wherever they were residing on Census Day, which is April 1st, 2020. And it's really important. I'm going to jump in and say this now, and I know numerous times throughout this presentation you might hear this, but there is no citizenship component. There's no citizenship question on the census. So it's really about whoever was living and residing, and for us specifically here in Jersey City on April 1st, 2020.
That's cool, because that's important. I don't know if people realize that it's based on where you lived April 1st, 2020. So that's
correct.
Yep.
So how does it work? So this year we actually have some new information. This is the first time that residents are going to be able to respond by the census via online or by phone. In previous years, it's just been a form application that was mailed to your house for you to fill out and send back. And at this point, some people may have additionally received their forms to their homes as well. So we just want to let people know how they can respond, that there's support on the phone in over 13 languages, and additional support online from the Census Bureau for how to fill out the form in different languages online as well.
great. Okay. Now, what type of questions are on the census? Like, what are you asking each household? Do they need to have anything prepared in advance? Like, do I need to have my driver's license with me before I fill it out? What type of information are you looking for?
No, there's no personal questions like that. There's actually 10 basic questions. And I could go ahead, Deja and I were speaking, and share my screen. and just quickly go through the questions. We found that sometimes that makes people feel a little more comfortable to realize that it's just very basic demographic information and a few questions about the housing structure. So I'll try to share my screen right now for you.
And what we try to tell everyone that it's 10 questions. It'll take less than about 10 minutes on average to fill out the form, and its impact is for the next 10 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, I can't share my screen. It's the panel is disabled. Okay. It's still not working, I'm sorry. I could just start to run through the questions.
Okay.
Oh, I'm on mute. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on mute.
It's okay. It's okay.
So I said, yeah, let's run through the questions and then I'll see if I can figure this out.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the first question is, how many people were living and staying in this house, apartment, or mobile home April 1st, 2020, like Deja mentioned about Census Day?
Okay.
Then they asked about the structure. Oh, let me try. They asked if it's a house, apartment, or mobile home. What's your telephone number? And the census asks for that in case there's any questions about your answers on your census form. They'll only contact you for official census business. Then they start to go through each person living in the household, what their name is, what their sex is, their age, and their date of birth. If they're of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, the person's race, and then they move on to everyone else in the household. And then they ask, does this person usually live or stay somewhere else? And again, that's to make sure the person's counted in the right place, counted once and only once and in the right place. And then the relation going back to person one who's filling it out. And anyone, any person of the household, as long as they're over the age of 15, can fill it out for the household. So again, very basic.
Okay. And that's just all of the questions right there.
Yep. That's
it.
I think that part of the hesitation a lot of times is that people think that it's a very long form to fill out.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally went through those questions in what, like a minute?
Yeah.
Great.
It takes a little longer depending on how many people you have in your household. That's it. So
But, I mean,
yep.
But we also like to reiterate.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
No, but the next set of questions, I guess, if you have more people in your house, are basically the same general questions.
Yes.
Right, so it'll ask after you give the first person who's going to be identified as like the lead person, the first person that you're filling out the form for, then it's going to ask relationship for everyone else. So person one, Councilwoman, if you resided in your home and you put down your name and you had an additional person staying there with you, it's going to ask who is that person in relationship to you. So you would be able to identify whether that was a roommate, whether that was some other relative, or whether a daughter, stepdaughter. It's pretty specific, and it has a little drop-down list for you to be able to identify relationship.
Okay.
But we also like to let people know, as far as fear about questions on the form, that Census Bureau is never going to ask for your credit card information. They will never ask you for your social security number. None of that type of information is required. Only the questions that Francesca just went through.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Francesca, I think I finally figured it out. So if you want to share that website with people,
Sure.
so they can view it, that
Yeah,
would,
absolutely. And this is also a link that we could send out. And it actually explains, you know, why each question's asked as well.
Oh, that's great. So it's like a one-page handout.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, and this is on the census.gov website.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Deja, you touched on some of this already about who is allowed to fill out the census. So my residency status doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I was born in this country, if I wasn't born here, none of that matters.
Absolutely, none of that matters. What we want everyone to know is that it's about residency. Where were you living? Where were you residing? Where did you go to sleep and wake up on April 1st, 2020? So there is no citizenship, again, component to the census. So again, like Francesca mentioned, anyone that's over the age of 15, and again, on the census form, we want to capture everyone that was residing at that address, whether they're related to you or not. And specifically, whether you had like a grandparent or someone that is staying with you and they're not residing elsewhere, we're going to capture those people on the form as well. If people are staying with you and they're not listed on your lease, we want to make sure that you're counting all of those people as well. And another particular population we want to point out to are brand new babies, because for some reason, people often leave their newborns off of the form. We want to include them on the form as well.
Okay, so let's go back to something you said. You said even if people aren't on your lease, but they're in your house. So we're not sharing this information with your landlord, correct?
That is correct, and that's specifically why I mentioned that. So there are these protections, and I know Francesca would love to get into that. That's one of our favorite topics of conversation is this Title 13, because we really want people to understand how safe their information is. So we not only can we not share it with your landlord, we cannot share this information with law enforcement. It cannot be shared with immigration services. It literally cannot be shared with anyone. And on some of the videos, if we can share additional links to the Census Bureau webpage and their YouTube page, they have some great informational videos in a bunch of languages. But that seems to be the one video that everyone laughs and likes the most, is where Census Bureau shows a lockbox. And they lock it with a digital keypad, they tie it up with rope, they put 15 padlocks on it, then they put cling wrap around it. Like, that's literally how safe and secure your information is, and used for statistical reasons only. We're talking about your personal, identifiable information that can be shared with no one.
Okay, great. Now, there are different ways to fill out this form, right? Like, I received the forms in the mail and I can respond by mail, but what are the other ways that I can respond?
Yeah, absolutely. So you, like as Deja spoke about, that where you have more options this time around. So you can, you know, fill out the mail form if you received it at this point, or you can go ahead and call the Census Bureau. They have the 13 different languages available for assistance to fill it out right over the phone. And then of course, the easiest, you can go online. It's very compatible, you know, of course on a laptop, but also on a phone or a tablet.
Awesome, okay. What's the deadline for us to respond?
This might be where I should pull up the other link, right, Deja?
Yes, at this time.
About COVID, yep.
Yeah, so we do have some operational changes, so we're going to discuss that. But specifically to your question on deadline, the deadline is right now, today, for everyone. We want everyone to fill it out as soon as possible, immediately. If you didn't fill it out on Census Day on April 1st, 2020, we're encouraging everyone to do it right now because it is truly so important. But we do have some changes and some extensions and pushbacks on our timeline due to COVID-19.
Okay.
And as you can see right there, Francesca was able to bring up that form. And this is also from the Census Bureau's webpage.
Right. Okay. And the main date that we're looking at here is October 31st as the final date to fill it out. But as Deja mentioned, that shouldn't deter you from filling it out today.
Don't want you to wait till October, get it
Right.
done while we're
Yes.
sheltered in place.
Right. Yes. And the other kind of target that I like to mention too is that the non-response follow-up, which was supposed to start happening, mid-May, if you see that date there, that's been pushed back. So that's what everyone thinks of when they think of the census, right? It's, census
takers
coming to your door. So, so that's not going to happen now until August 11th. So we really want to get our self-response rate up as high as possible. So there needs to be less census taker follow-up.
Right. And this helps protect all of us. It's helping to protect those census workers. It's helping to protect everyone by having the least amount of people out there and encouraging even more people to engage in self-response. And then one of the things to notice about those operational changes, as this petition was put forth to Congress for this extension, but it has not been voted on at this point. So again, that's why we are stressing the urgency for everyone to fill out the form as soon as possible.
Okay, great. So we discussed that your information is not going to be sent to law enforcement. It's not going to be sent to ICE. It's not going to be sent to your landlord. So who is using this census information?
Well, okay, Francesca.
No, well, I was just going to say just the Census Bureau in terms of analyzing the data, but the users are ranging quite the scope. Basically, it's the foundation for what people draw from when they talk about policy. Transportation, school funding, anything you could think of. This is the foundation of those numbers for 10 years. That's on the policy side. Then, of course, there's congressional apportionment, which is a huge deal, and political representation. Those are two examples. I'll let Deja elaborate on that.
Yes. So for us here on the local level, who uses this data? So like she's saying, we want to really separate it out. Your personal identifiable information only goes to Census Bureau, and those are only people that are going to be able to see that portion of the data. But for instance, the numbers as they come out and they're published, let's say the number of children that we have here in Jersey City, that number is going to be used to inform future planning for our school system, when we need to determine if we need to build more schools based on the number of children that were just born, because we're going to need more seats come the next 10 years. So if there's a child and they're 2 years old right now and they're counted on this form, we're ensuring that we have funding for them for school for the next 10 years. If someone doesn't include their 2-year-old, the next time we would be able to capture them, they would be 12 years old. So look at all of those years of going to school, textbooks, money for updating our parks, recreation programming for these children, the money that should be coming from the federal government allocated specifically for that child, we won't have. So we can take this census data and it can be used in numerous ways, not just on the planning side, but we also like to say that we share this information and businesses can go in and create different questions and go through the data and say, well, maybe based on the number of people live here, this would be a good business, or there's room for me to open another business in this field because multiple people are going to be there. There's more than enough people there to split the pie, in reference to this. It's also in reference to our hospitals. We need to ensure that we have an appropriate number of beds for the amount of residents that we have here. So especially in light of COVID, we start thinking about all the ways we can start tapping into this data to make sure that we're prepared for the future. But again, we can't prepare if we don't know who's here. And what more people need to understand, that all of these programs and preparing that we're doing, it's for everyone, regardless of whether you're a citizen or not. And that's why we have to count everyone, regardless if they're a citizen or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deja, I'll just add one more thing. A big user of the data are community groups. And because they use that data to apply for different funding. And, because you can show, where there's the low mod census tracts. So that's like a super important component when it comes to community groups and advocacy. And I know that, that's, why, they're involved in this process and want to make sure that we get the right count.
Awesome. So Governor Murphy stated in one of his daily briefings that we were underfunded as a state during the 2010 census due to a low response rate. What can a low response rate cost us as a county and as a city, even as a state, especially in a time like this during COVID-19 with, God forbid something like this happens again, but why is it so important for us to get that response rate up?
Well, I'll touch upon the most kind of tangible. Well, there's really two tangible reasons, that stick out. One is that, the lower count lost us a congressional seat for New Jersey. So that's huge. That's, you can point to that and say, we cannot risk losing another seat in Congress, especially now when, we have our elected officials fighting down in Washington to get us the relief funds that we need, for COVID and post-COVID. So that's super critical. And I think, it's highlighted, especially, in these times. And then, just the money on federal funding. Again, it's tied to number of people, different economic and socioeconomic conditions and areas. And so, we really risk losing millions of dollars.
Right. I think I'm just going to add on that for us, like locally, what it means. So in 2010, in the last census, Jersey City's overall response rate hovered somewhere around 62%. So that's just going to show us 10 years ago, and for the last decade, we've already been operating at a deficit in response to us receiving our portion of federal funding for Jersey City. So that's why it's even more important for this census for us to have an accurate count, because not only are we accurately counting right now, but we have to make up ground for funding that we didn't receive back in 2010 due to a low response. So this is impacting us, like specifically here in Jersey City, when we're talking about the budget deficit in reference to our schools, money for certain nonprofit programs, when they're running out of funding, when you're talking about rental assistance, when we're talking about low income home energy assistance programs, like we know that that funding is limited, but the amount that we get is based on our population. So when people were trying to head down to Paco and get some assistance and maybe the money had run out and there was none left, we can directly attribute that to census. And that's why we need to increase our funding and increase our response rate.
So you touched on this a little, the census and why it's important to small businesses, and can it assist with some of the small business relief around the country. And you mentioned briefly that small businesses, it will help them understand what areas they might want to move to or what the population is in that area. So I'm assuming that it probably would be helpful when they need some relief, because you can kind of gauge how many people they should be serving.
Absolutely. So definitely for small businesses in reference to relief, or just identifying how many small businesses that there are here and who's going to, the portion of funding that we're going to receive from that is all tied into census. But then other ways of how we're trying to support our business owners, specifically those that are applying for unemployment benefits right now. Like, believe it or not, the amount of money that the state of New Jersey receives for unemployment benefits is tied directly to our census count. So again, we want to make sure that the appropriate amount of funding that we're supposed to be receiving from the federal government is here. A way that I've tried to explain it to people, and businesses included, we all pay taxes. Some people, once they file, they get a tax return, but the government is keeping that whole other portion of money. The census is about this big pool, and how do we spread that pool back out to all of the states? And they're not going to give it to us based on how many people file their taxes. They're spreading that money back out based on need. And the only way to prove need is for everyone to raise their hand and tell the government, like, hi, I'm here. Make sure you send the appropriate funds for me so that I can live this great American life that we live here in the United States.
Awesome. Okay. What would you say to people who believe that filling out the census is not a priority? Why do they need to make this a priority? I see your sad face.
Yes. Well, I mean, you would just devastate Deja and I, one.
Right.
Two, it is so quick and easy and so important. Please just take some time out of your day, to fill it out. And, you can use, as we explained, all these things that are tied to it. And it just is so far reaching and for such a long period of time that it's too important to not make it a priority.
Great.
Right. I also agree. And I would like, for my commentary on this to go specifically to our new residents that are here in our city, those that are documented and even undocumented. Census is one of our most important civic duties. And some people in those populations can't engage in the voting process. But census is right up there with voting. Again, it's in the Constitution and it's mandated that we all participate and do this. But one of the more important things is that this community doesn't realize this is what's giving you a voice in government right now. Because when you're from a state like New Jersey and you're taking the census and we're making sure that we're having the appropriate amount of political representation, those people from your communities know that you live there. And those are the individuals like Councilwoman Ridley that are advocating on your behalf. So if you don't raise your hand and take this census and make sure that the funds are there, then we can't implement those programs, such as in the city of Jersey City, we have the Division of Immigrant Affairs, which has put together great information and can provide you with networking to resources that can assist you on your pathway to citizenship or just information in this trying time. But we can't advocate and increase service like that and make services like that if people aren't raising their hand and saying that they're here. So specifically to that population, I want them to understand that it correlates both locally on the state level and on the national level of directly giving you a voice in government and making sure that your concerns are heard and going to be addressed by those that are representing you.
Absolutely. That's an awesome point, Deja. And just also that, we as a county, as a city, we're so proud of our diversity and we want everyone to be counted and to show just, all of the ethnic populations, all the different kinds of people we have here. And we're proud of that. And, we want you to be too.
Great. Now, last question. In your opinion, how is this census going to be helpful in this post-COVID-19 world and with us rebuilding the county, the city, rebuilding the nation after this pandemic? How is this information going to be vital?
Well, I'm just going to start at this level. One of the Census Bureau's mottos in reference to the census is shape the future. And that's what people really need to understand, especially in reference to a lot of these nonprofit groups. And as people in light of this time in post-COVID are just trying to do whatever they can to reach out to their neighbors and, make community and really be there for each other, you can shape the future through census. Funding will be there for you to create whatever type of program you think that the community needs to be serviced, and that there is federal funding to help support you in that mission of supporting your fellow neighbors. And additionally, here locally, having an accurate count means that we're going to be receiving money for our healthcare services, our first responders, and to make sure that we are having the equipment that we need to keep everyone healthy and safe here in Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll just add, again, this, on the policy side, these numbers are the basis for everything. So it's really going to impact our policy and implementation of it on the county, on the local level, when it comes to healthcare and helping small businesses, keeping businesses, business growing and all that. So, it's super important.
Great. Okay. So ladies, do you have any last thoughts that you want to leave with people on the census today? And we'll start with Deja and close out with Francesca.
Okay. Everybody, please fill out your census. But no, seriously, it is truly important. Right now, currently in Jersey City, our census response rate is 47%. It is one of the lowest response rate in the state. We need to get serious about it. And we are collaborating with the county and the state as a part of their Friends and Family Awareness and Census Days of Action. So what we're asking and charging everyone that's watching this video right now is to pick up the phone and check on your friends and family and make sure they're doing okay. But while you're on the phone with them, we're asking that you reach out to 5 people in your personal network and encourage them to fill out the census if they haven't already done it. Your voice means so much more to the people in your network and your community than mine ever could. So that's why we want to unite everybody and make them census ambassadors and go out into the world and spread this message and really encourage everyone to fill it out and be counted.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to bring it home, I'm going to show a map that actually highlights Ward A. So you can see how the different census tracts are doing. So they have some that are, pretty high compared to the state as a whole, compared to the city as a whole, I'm sorry. And then some others that are a little lower.
Okay.
So if you want to, have a little, friendly competition and get Ward A up there ahead of the rest of the wards, go for it. And yes, please fill out your census.
The darker blue area is the higher response rate, right?
Yes, it is. So that's 65.4 response right now as the newest numbers that have come in. And the lighter color has a lower response rate.
Okay, so it looks like, if I'm reading this map correctly, it looks like we have a lot of people responding in Society Hill.
Correct?
Yes.
And this other side, I believe, is that Port Liberté side.
Seems to be pretty well. Okay. Then we have a few other neighborhoods down off of West Side that are doing pretty well.
Correct.
A little darker in that area. But okay, this is good. Good to know.
So as the city starts to open back up, we will be coming out and trying to make more of a presence out and let people know that we can assist them with filling out their census forms.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I thank you ladies for your time today. Thank you for educating us on the census. For those of you watching, I was speaking with them before we got on live. We are planning a few events in the month of June. The Hudson County Democratic Black Caucus will be sending out more information about census events where you can actually come and do your census on the spot. So of course, socially distance, we're working out all those details. We want everybody to remain safe, but we also want everybody to make sure that they are being counted. So we're going to try to assist with that in the best way that we can. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to my office, dridley@jcnj.org, dridley@jcnj.org. But thank you everyone for joining today, and thank you again, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.